She vanished from her apartment while her car was still parked outside, her phone still on the nightstand, and her dog barking nonstop all morning. No screams, no signs of a struggle. No one heard a thing, just another quiet Sunday morning in Palmyra, Pennsylvania. But by noon, the phone calls started. Her parents kept calling. Over and over, no answer. The phone rang from inside the apartment. Her pit bull was scratching at the door, barking like it hadn't stopped since sunrise. Kortne Stouffer, just 21 years old, never showed up for a brunch she'd planned with her grandfather, never sent a single text. And the door to her apartment, still locked from the inside. It was like time had frozen, the very moment she stepped out. No clues, no witnesses. Her disappearance sent a chill through the entire town. Within a week, flyers with Kortne's face-papered gas stations and corner stores. After a month, whispers began. What if she never left the apartment at all? 13 years have passed. No arrests, no confessions. But no one, not even the people closest to her, can say for certain what really happened. In that room, at 3:30 a.m., Kortne Stouffer grew up in a small town where everybody knew everybody, or at least thought they did. She was the middle child of 3, lived just a few blocks from her parents, and still came home for Sunday dinners. She loved art, wore handmade bracelets, had long dreadlocks past her shoulders, and jogged along the Swatcha Creek most mornings. Her friends called her Kort, a free spirit with a radiant smile. Impulsive at times, but always genuine. In a town like Palmyra, someone like her stood out. A 21-year-old with hippie vibes, surrounded by white picket fences and neatly trimmed lawns. But everyone knew one thing: Kortne had a big heart. She adored animals and shared her apartment with Sheba, a pit bull she treated like family. She once told a friend, "If anything ever happens to me, take care of Sheba first." She lived alone in a small second-floor apartment, right above a neighbor who often argued with her about noise. In the summer of 2012, she was planning a spontaneous road trip to Florida. No schedule, no map, just sun, sand, and music. She had recently broken up with her boyfriend. Friends said she wasn't sleeping well, played her music louder, took walks at 2 or 3 a.m. And during those late-night hours, the complaints started piling up. Neighbors called the police more than once about disturbances. Then came the night of July 28th, 2012. Police were called to Kortne's apartment again. It would be the last time. There was one thing even her family didn't know. In the week before she vanished, Kortne confided in a close friend, "I feel like someone's watching me." On the night of July 28th, 2012, Kortne went to an outdoor concert in Harrisburg with a group of friends, just a 30-minute drive from Palmyra. They drank beers, laughed, took photos. Kortne wore a flowing white dress, beaded bracelets, and had her hair tied up, like a young Janis Joplin in the summer heat. Around 1 a.m., they returned to her second-floor apartment. Music played, windows were open, and their voices echoed into the quiet night. Not long after, her downstairs neighbor called the police, complaining about noise, yelling. Officers arrived at 3:12 a.m. According to the report, they found Kortne arguing with her ex-boyfriend, who lived nearby and had shown up unexpectedly. No one was hurt, nothing was damaged, but Kortne was furious. Friends later said she felt provoked, set up, and deeply frustrated at being labeled the troublemaker. At 3:30 a.m., police left the scene, and that was the last time anyone outside the apartment ever saw her. Her friend, who had stayed the night, said they all went to sleep soon after. But when morning came, Kortne was gone. No noise during the night, no slamming doors, no cries for help. No one in the building, including the neighbor downstairs, heard anything strange. Her phone was still on the nightstand. Her purse untouched on the table. Her car still parked out front. The door locked. And the most chilling detail for her family, Sheba, Kortne's pit bull, her constant shadow, was still inside. Not left outside, not taken for a walk. No sign she'd ever left the apartment. Worried calls began piling up when Kortne didn't show for a fair she'd planned to attend with her grandfather, something she'd never missed before. When the family finally came to check, what shook them most wasn't what they found. It was what they didn't. That morning, the Pennsylvania sun was blazing. Kortne's grandfather waited at their meeting spot, where they were supposed to go to the county fair, an annual tradition, but she never showed. No text to cancel. No call to say she'd be late. And that, to him, was strange. Kortne could be impulsive, but never with him. Meanwhile, her phone began ringing non-stop. Her mother, her brother, her closest friends, calling over and over. No one picked up. No texts read. Finally, her family got in the car and drove to her apartment. When they pulled up, no car missing, no signs of forced entry. Part of them still hoped maybe she just overslept. But the moment the door opened, that hope vanished. Inside, everything was frozen in place. A half-empty water bottle on the stove. The clothes she'd worn the night before, draped over a chair. Her phone, still charged, resting on the nightstand. Her wallet, ID, bank cards, all accounted for. And Sheba, standing by the door, growling, as if she'd been waiting all night. But Kortne was gone. No signs of a break-in. No blood. No broken windows. No screams heard during the night, at least not according to the neighbors. Police were called immediately. They photographed the apartment, collected her phone, and at first, they assumed the simplest answer. She probably just left. She'll come back. But her family knew better. Kortne would never leave Sheba behind. The entire town of Palmyra seemed to stop. Flyers with her photo-blanketed gas stations, grocery stores, even her old high school. Volunteers searched the nearby woods, riverbanks, and empty lots. Some claimed to have seen a woman walking along the highway. Others said they heard a scream that night, but thought it was a dream. Police checked local surveillance footage, but either no cameras existed or the tapes had already been erased. The deeper they searched, the more baffling it became. No suspects, no confessions, no one speaking up. And the biggest question of all, the ex-boyfriend who had been there during the argument, had he really told them everything he knew? 2 days after Kortne vanished, one of her closest friends received a message from an unknown number. Just 4 words. She didn't just leave. In the days following Kortne's disappearance, the mood in Palmyra began to shift. From concern to suspicion. Because the deeper the investigation went, the more things stopped making sense. The first person police re-interviewed was Kortne's ex-boyfriend, the same man she was arguing with shortly before 3:30 a.m. He claimed the argument ended when police left, and that he left the apartment complex not long after. But another neighbor, someone who lived in the back unit, told a different story. They remembered hearing another argument, quieter, short, just a few minutes. It happened after the police had gone. No shouting, but they recalled a door slamming, hard, and a sound, something heavy hitting the floor. Then, silence. That detail was never in the original report. The second person police questioned was the friend who had stayed over at Kortne's that night, the one who said he slept through everything. Claimed Kortne had watched TV for a bit, then went to bed. But here's the problem. According to service provider logs, the TV was turned off at exactly 3:41 a.m. and wasn't turned back on until late the next afternoon when Kortne's family arrived. So if he was sound asleep, how did he know Kortne stayed up watching TV? Police also examined Kortne's phone. The final text she sent went out at 1:24 a.m. to a close female friend. He's here. I'm not opening the door. I'm not letting him pull me in again. Who was he? The ex-boyfriend? Or someone else? And why didn't that friend mention the message sooner? She later told police she was too sleepy and only realized Kortne was missing the next morning. Another friend, someone who hadn't seen Kortne in a while, came forward with a chilling memory. About 2 weeks before the disappearance, Kortne had said something strange. If I ever go missing, don't let them say it was an accident. At the time, everyone laughed it off. Now, it sounded like a warning. After a week, police expanded the search. They went door to door in Kortne's neighborhood, asking every resident if they'd noticed anything unusual that night. But no one recalled seeing anyone leave her apartment. No one saw headlights. No working cameras caught a thing. One camera, on a house directly across from Kortne's unit, should have had a perfect view of the parking lot. But in a cruel twist, the homeowner said the system had been off for a few days due to a power outage. No one ever verified if the outage was real or if the cord had simply been pulled. Either way, there was no footage. What haunted Kortne's family most was this. Her apartment hadn't been ransacked. Her phone, wallet, car keys, all untouched. It didn't look like a robbery. And it didn't look like she ran away. So, what was it? Roughly 800 meters from her building, a search volunteer found a single White House slipper caked in mud, lying at the edge of an empty lot. Her family confirmed it looked just like the kind Kortne wore around the house. But there was no usable DNA, and no one could say for sure if she'd been wearing slippers or barefoot that night. Around the same time, a building maintenance worker came forward. He said that on the morning Kortne disappeared while checking the electrical box behind the building, he noticed something strange. The back door on the ground floor was slightly open. He was sure he had locked it the night before. Nothing appeared to be missing, but the question lingered. Who opened that door and why? An internal review was also launched, not into a suspect, but into the Palmyra police themselves. Kortne's family, and later their attorney, raised a painful question. Did the police act urgently enough in those first critical hours? The police chief at the time declined to comment, but an anonymous former law enforcement officer told a local radio host, "This should have been treated like a criminal case from the very first hour, but they waited. And in investigations like this, just a few hours can erase everything." 10 days later, a new lead emerged. A security guard in another town, nearly 25 miles from Palmyra, told police he believed he saw a woman matching Kortne's description. She was with a man, long hair, unknown, standing in the backlot of a highway rest stop. Police arrived 3 hours later. By then, there were no cameras, no license plate, and no trace of the man or the woman he was with. 2 weeks after Kortne disappeared, an anonymous call came in to the Pennsylvania State Police tip line. The voice on the other end, hoarse and low, simply said, "I'm not sure, but if anyone knows what happened to that girl, it's the guy who lives downstairs." That guy, Milton, was in his 40s, a warehouse laborer. He lived directly beneath Kortne's apartment. According to police records, he'd called 911 5 times in the 3 months before she went missing, complaining about loud music, footsteps at night, voices overhead. At first, it seemed like nothing more than typical neighbor drama. But the deeper investigators looked, the stranger things became. One of Kortne's friends, who had stayed over a few times, said she remembered seeing Milton standing out on his balcony, smoking, just staring up at Kortne's bedroom window. "I don't know if it was intentional, but it gave me chills." A pizza delivery driver told police that once, after mistakenly knocking on Milton's door instead of Kortne's, the man flew into a rage, yelling, "Those people upstairs don't respect anyone. Someday they'll pay for it." At the time, no one thought much of it. But in hindsight, every word took on a new weight. When police interviewed Milton, he appeared cooperative, even expressed outrage at Kortne's disappearance. He claimed that after the police left that night, everything went dead quiet. He said he didn't hear anything, no footsteps, no voices. He said he went to sleep around 3:45 a.m. But investigators were puzzled. If he could hear every other time Kortne played music late, how did he not hear anything, the night she vanished? No footsteps, no doors, no barking from Sheba. Police requested a search of his apartment. They found nothing suspicious, no incriminating items, no signs of a struggle. But according to an internal source in the private garage Milton rented behind the building, they found something strange. A rolled-up rug, muddy on one end. Soil samples were taken. The mud didn't match the dirt near Kortne's apartment, but it did match soil from near the Swatara Creek Trail, where Kortne often jogged. The evidence wasn't strong enough for an arrest, but it was more than enough to raise suspicion. Kortne had never mentioned him to her family. To her, maybe he was just the grumpy guy downstairs. But maybe, just maybe, she sensed something no one else picked up on. About a month after she vanished, the investigation began to lose steam. No suspect, no DNA match, no body. And soon, the media went quiet. But then, someone no one expected stepped forward. A 67-year-old woman named Denise, who lived just 3 doors down, called the police with something no one had ever asked her about. She said, "I remember that night, around 4 a.m., I stepped out onto my porch because I heard something. I saw a silver car parked at the corner, engine running, headlights pointed straight at Kortne's building. I thought it was strange, but I assumed it was the newspaper delivery guy." This detail was in no report. No one had questioned her, and there were no cameras on that street corner. But when police pulled footage from a nearby gas station, they caught something. A silver Toyota Camry driving past the area at exactly 3:58 a.m., just 28 minutes after police left Kortne's apartment. The license plate was too blurry to read. No way to prove it was connected. But on a quiet summer night in a town that small, that car stood out. It seemed like another dead end, until Kortne's cousin made a discovery. While looking through an old phone the family had forgotten about, she found something. A selfie, Timestamped 2:46 a.m., less than an hour before Kortne vanished. In the photo, Kortne stands in her living room, smiling faintly. But behind her, in the window glass, a reflection, a figure, outside. At first, the family assumed it was her friend. But the friend, who had stayed over, was adamant. "That's not me. I was in the bedroom since 2 a.m. I was nowhere near the window." So, who was it? Police used image enhancement software. The photo was too grainy to identify a face, but the outline was clear. A man wearing a baseball cap standing at the very edge of the window as if peering inside. Not clear enough for charges, but clear enough to confirm one thing. Kortne didn't just vanish. Someone came to that apartment, and they had a plan. Weeks later, a man walked into the local police station. In his hand, he held an object, a turquoise beaded necklace, the same kind Kortne was known to wear every day. He said he found it in the glove box of a car he had loaned to someone else. The man who brought the necklace to police was named Lucas. He was 33 and had once worked alongside Kortne's father at a small repair shop in Lebanon County. He barely knew Kortne, had only seen her at a couple of family gatherings. But what he brought in shook the investigation to its core. The necklace, a strand of turquoise beads with a small sun-shaped charm, was nearly identical to the one Kortne was wearing in her last known selfie, timestamped 2:46 a.m. the night she vanished. Her family confirmed it, but Lucas said he found it in the glove box of a car he was cleaning out before selling. The strangest part? He hadn't owned that car in over a year. Back in 2013, just a few months after Kortne went missing, Lucas had lent the car to an old friend named Derek, someone with a minor criminal record who needed it to get around for a couple of weeks. Derek lived just 3 blocks from Kortne. His name had never appeared in any previous police report. When investigators found him, Derek seemed confused. He said he had no idea what necklace they were talking about. Maybe someone else left it behind? He shrugged. But as the interview continued, his answers started changing. First, he said he borrowed the car for a week. Then it was 10 days. Then he said he only drove it a few times. When asked where he was the week Kortne disappeared, Derek kept repeating, "I don't remember. It was a long time ago. I might have been working a night shift." But records from his employer showed he had no shift on July 28th. No one could say where he'd been. Still, there was no hard evidence. No cameras, no DNA, just a necklace. Police searched his home, found nothing. They even brought in cadaver dogs to check the old car, hoping to detect traces of Kortne's scent. But too much time had passed. The results were inconclusive. The media picked up the case again. The town split. Some were sure Derek was hiding something. Others believed Lucas was trying to pin suspicion on a friend. Once again, Kortne's family found themselves pulled into a storm of doubt, whispers, and theories. But just as the spotlight turned fully onto Derek, a new lead surfaced. One that didn't just challenge existing theories. It made Kortne's family question everything. In late September, 2 months after she vanished, a woman named Marissa, a former high school friend now living in Ohio, contacted the family. She said she'd recently stumbled upon an old Facebook post from Kortne, one that had been hidden from public view, visible only to close friends. It had been posted 6 days before she went missing. The message read, "Some people smile to your face, but keep your house key in their pockets." It sounded poetic, cryptic, but now her family couldn't ignore the meaning. Who had a key to Kortne's apartment? She lived alone. Per her lease, only she and the landlord were supposed to have keys. But digging deeper, police discovered that Kortne's ex-boyfriend, the same man who'd argued with her that night, once had a spare key, and he never gave it back. When asked, he said he must have lost it. But this was the same man who'd claimed, "I left after the police did. I never saw Kortne again." If he still had the key, could he have returned? Entered silently, no forced entry while she slept? That's when a forensic consultant, brought in by the family, reviewed old scene photos, specifically those of the apartment door's lock. He noted something subtle. The lock wasn't picked or broken, but it showed minor signs of stress, as if someone had turned it the wrong way, or forced it just a bit too hard. This detail had never made it into the original report. Local police declined to comment. And that's when the family began to question those first responders. The officers who were there that night. Had they missed something? Or worse, Had they covered something up? An independent investigator hired by the family discovered that the body cam footage from one of the responding officers was missing data, specifically from 3:28 to 3:46 a.m., the exact time frame when Kortne was last believed to be alive. No one could explain the gap. No technical error, no power issue, just gone. No evidence, but no explanation either. Then another anonymous call came in. No name, no location. Just 6 chilling words before the line went dead. She saw something she shouldn't have. Time moved on. Weeks turned into months. And like so many unsolved cases across America, the disappearance of Kortne Stouffer slowly faded from public memory. A mystery left to gather dust in the quiet corners of cold case files. But for her family, time didn't erase anything. It only stretched the silence. Day after day, without answers. Kortne's father kept her room exactly the same. Photos still lined the walls. Handmade bracelets, half-finished sketches. Every year, on July 29th, he posted the same message. "You are never forgotten. I still believe you're out there somewhere." No body, no charges, no ending. At times, her family wanted to believe she was still alive. Maybe held somewhere. Maybe she left, for reasons no one could understand. But then they'd ask themselves, if that were true, why hasn't she ever reached out? The case remains officially open. Police still accept tips, but active investigation has all but stopped. To them, it's one file in a backlog of hundreds, waiting for a real break. For 5 years, volunteer search groups combed through miles of land, forest, riverbanks, and abandoned quarries around Palmyra. They found things: shoes, rugs, strands of hair, dried blood, but none of it linked to Kortne. As for the necklace, there wasn't enough DNA to confirm anything, and no one was ever arrested. Her family once asked the FBI to step in, but the case didn't meet the criteria for a federal escalation. And that, they said, was the most painful truth of all. Kortne's story wasn't considered serious enough to be heard louder. What if the person who harmed her was someone she knew? What if it all happened, clean, quiet, and fast, just minutes after the police left? And what if it was that familiarity, that closeness, that stopped her from realizing the danger? Until it was too late? No one knows.